I need some space. The thing is, I've been trying to fit myself into a variety of locations. I've moved from the garage to my basement to a little building on the farm to my basement, back out to the garage. And it's hard. It's too much. So I decided, with the urging of my partner, to build something for myself. And that's what this first series of videos is about. The reason I want to show it to an audience and to record it really is because I want to remember how to do it, and I don't think that I'm really going to unless I record it. And it's a lot of hard work, I will say that. But one of the things that it touches on for me is that I am and want to continue to be in deep relationship with the land that I'm on. And that looks like going to the wooded areas and showing respect and gratitude and asking permission. And as silly as that might seem, it's part of my practice, and it's deeply, deeply important and personal for me. It's something that's important and should be important to everyone in the world, because we live in relationship to people, to ourselves, to the other beings that inhabit the world around us. And the decisions that we make are deeply impactful, for good or for bad. And the practice of acknowledging the space that we take up and the space that we share is part of what's missing in our context, and part of my interest and my practice, and I feel my vocation is to show how we can make different choices and be more considerate of others and the spaces around us. So we have plenty of trees on the farm, and actually a lot of rough sawn lumber, but it's not quite what I need. It's been cut for furniture and various farm projects, but we don't have framing material. So I need 2x10s and 2x6s and 2x4s out of a strong wood. It doesn't have to be perfect, but that's the consideration, and that's what I need, and we don't quite have it. So I need to cut down living trees and let them dry before I even begin And that requires a lot of planning. But it's also less expensive. And as the old saying goes, I'm sure you've heard it, you can make something good and cheap and fast, but you can only pick two. And I usually settle upon cheap and slow. Or good and cheap, which means it's slow. So then, that sparks another question. What does cheap actually mean? I think it originally meant that if you want it to be good and cheap, then it's not going to be fast. So in my situation, it means that I have to harvest wood for free, which means I'm not paying a person or a company to supply the material. But there's a problem with that equation, in my opinion. It's not taking into account the trees or the ecosystem. Certainly, to those systems and those beings, meaning the forest and the trees, there is a cost. There are effects that are not financial, in other words. Finances aren't always the only consideration. So if I just stomp through the forest and cut down trees whenever I want to and however I want to, I'm not actually taking into account the real expense that involves the forest and the systems there and that ecosystem of which I am a part. That's why I acknowledge the relationship there. The fact is, I'm not cutting down an object. I'm cutting down a living, breathing, actually, thing. It's a living thing, and it really, really matters. After speaking with my dad about the project and harvesting the trees, we settled on thinning out a grove of red pine trees on a hill on the property. I had originally considered white pine trees, which also inhabit the other side of the hill, but it's my understanding that red pine is more suitable for our project. So finally, on a cool day in March, we cut and drug 10 trees down to the sawmill. We cut them in March because we wanted to avoid having excess moisture in the wood. And so in the northern hemisphere, of course, there's a rush of moisture that happens in the spring as the trees are kind of shaking off winter and coming out of dormancy. And it makes things like bark easier to pull. It fills the tree with water, and that's something that we don't need. That's something we don't need in cut lumber. So we wanted to cut it in the spring to avoid excess moisture, so that it would dry in time for framing, or dry enough for framing, and so that we wouldn't have a lot of problems with, things like mildew and mold, and we don't, you don't want that in the frame of your building. So, I learned a lot that day. And while I do have experience felling trees, I don't have the lifetime of experience felling trees that my father has. And so I learned a lot that day. I learned that sometimes you have to fell them uphill for safety. Sometimes you fell them downhill. You have to watch for snags, and you have to watch for anything else that the tree might be caught on. And the right way to cut. And I learned a lot from him, and I'm very, very grateful for that experience. After we felled and pulled things into a central location, I and my partner, Tara, spent the rest of the afternoon cutting limbs off and cutting the limbs as closely to the trunk as possible so that it doesn't get caught up as they're dragged down to where we mill the wood and stack them on the skidway, to prepare to be sawn into the lumber that I needed for the building. There's something about embarking on a project like this and starting something that feels really big, that is scary, but also once you make the first steps, there's a lot of momentum. And in the past, I've never quite been in a position to take on a project this large in scale for a lot of reasons. Time, money, especially time, everything. Inexperience, confidence, having help. There's a lot that runs through your mind. Can I take on something this big? What if it's a huge failure? What if? And you can spend all of your time and energy asking and considering all of the things that could go wrong. But if you don't try, you have certainly failed. So I'm inviting you along with me to navigate and participate and watch and kind of build a little community around the successes and failures of trying to live with the land. And this is just the first step. So I'm happy to invite you to come along with me as I craft a life with the land, doing my best to create and foster a reciprocal relationship. One of the ways to support that is to subscribe and like and comment on the video, and I'll do my best to create a community here on YouTube, and I thank you so much for watching. See you next time.
Everybody doing okay?